Hello. Yes. Hello, everyone. Hi. Um, hi. Alex Godden. I'm senior heritage specialist archaeologist for the Environment Agency, working in the southeast. I've been actually in professional archaeology for about 20 years, so I feel a bit guilty, sort of jumping in for all these amazing, shiny new people that are doing this amazing new stuff, and I've this kind of old gits turned up and said, "Oh, well, think about this instead." Um, but I was a bit worried that my thing will be a little bit kind of like left field, but actually, from the things that I've been seeing today, it's all been about stories and about how we as archaeologists tell stories, how we should be, we create narratives. But I'm going to slightly reverse that relationship and talk about the tangible value of intangible heritage. Hopefully. Yeah, there we go. Right. So, first of all, what is intangible heritage? Hopefully. Hey, okay. Right. So this is something that UNESCO recognised as being important back in the early 2000s, which led to the setting up of various kind of committees for the safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage. And there's yearly reviews to do lists of what is considered to be intangible heritage that needs to be protected and preserved. But basically, what it means is the definition is the practices, representations, expressions, knowledge, skills, instruments, objects, artifacts, cultural spaces that communities, groups, in some cases, individuals recognise as part of their cultural heritage. Now, this covers a kind of multitude of things, which hopefully is going to start coming up. Why is that not appearing? There we go. So, oral traditions and expressions, folklore, oral history, that kind of thing. Performing arts, social practices, rituals, and festive events, knowledge and practices concerning nature and the universe, traditional craftsmanship. So, as it stands at the moment, I don't believe there's actually anything from the United Kingdom is actually on any of the lists that UNESCO produce. But I think we have this huge wealth of these kind of things here. We do have them. I mean, a colleague of mine actually was actually determined I mentioned cheese rolling in this talk. So I'm going to say, yeah, cheese rolling. There you go. It's a cultural practice. It's intangible cultural heritage. But we have things like, this huge wealth of folklore attached to archaeological sites. We have oral histories. We have traditional, we have Morris dancing, that kind of thing. There are all these wonderful examples of intangible heritage in this country. So, why are stories important? First of all, come on. Sorry, I'm done. Right. So, it's been long recognised that the historic environment, which we all deal with as archaeologists, is a combination of both physical things, tangible, monuments, artifacts, buildings, landscapes, but also these aspects that we can't see. Again, stories, traditions, concepts. This is the intangible aspects of the historic environment. And a place itself can also be defined by non-physical concepts, such as memories, such as oral histories and folklore. As I mentioned before, there are tons of archaeological sites that are very famous for the folklore that's been attached to them, or the memories that people may have, of local communities may have of these sites. It's not just about the physical aspects of these assets that adds to their significance. What I like to argue is that these stories, these non-physical concepts can therefore be used to demonstrate the significance of a site or a place or an asset beyond just the physical remains. It's not just about the physical stuff. So, heritage never exists in a vacuum. Its value and its potential impacts of that value from change is often an important part of how communities see their local heritage. People's emotional connections to places in which they live can have a big impact on how they engage in thinking about the future of those kind of places. So a lot of the time when you're dealing with developer-led or commercial archaeology and you're engaging with people about how they feel about changes to their landscape, new developments. There's a 5,000 homes going in down the road. This is happening. You're building this. These emotional connections are very, very important. People feel very strongly about their local landscapes. And although communities do engage with risk management authorities, such as local planning authorities, such as my colleagues in the Environment Agency, about how to become more resilient to change, these conversations often don't cover the cultural aspects of how they engage with these with this heritage and their local landscapes, not only in terms of how it'll be affected, or how it can be leveraged to increase resilience in the future. So it's important to understand, illuminate, and celebrate the meaningful details of people's beliefs, stories, and relationships with each other's in time, space, and particular places, which is a crucial step in building resilience. So about, understanding that these stories, these emotional connections to places is of importance. It is significant. It is significant. So archaeologists are storytellers, as we've been hearing today. We tell stories. It's all about explaining to people and creating narratives about what we discover, what we learn, how our research uncovers things, things that no one's seen before for thousands of years. And archaeologists are often commissioned in support development, in order to understand the significance of a site or place, by assessing potential impacts from those proposals on the heritage assets and landscapes. It's a big part of commercial archaeology. It's almost like the crux of what we are usually employed to do. So an understanding of that cultural significance that incorporates both the tangible and the intangible informs conservation and management decisions. Why is it that people, what is it that make these things that are going to be impacted on by development, by new plans, by new housing estates, etc.? What are the impacts on that? It's not just the physical impacts on the archaeology. It's also about what are the impacts from a cultural perspective as well for local communities. And that can lead into all sorts of things regarding sort of interpretation and learning programs. What I'm arguing is that collecting oral histories, folklore, other intangible heritage can be valid alongside just the physical evidence when we are working in this kind of field, in this kind of sector. But as we've heard many times before, how do you sell that idea to people? Oh yeah, we want to record all histories, we want to record the folklore. As you said, especially when you're looking at commercial clients, the archaeology is often just about ticking a box. I'll just get it out of the way and get it done with. That's it. Move on. Oh, come on. Sorry, there we go. So, cultural capital. Now there is going to be a session tomorrow, I believe, on culture capital. Just a plug to those guys at the back. Thank you, Hannah. So it's defined as an asset which embodies, stores, or gives rise to cultural value in addition to whatever economic value it may possess. These assets can be physical or non-physical. I'll give you some good examples in a minute of how that is very clearly demonstrated. Sorry, I'm having real troubles with that. So these physical assets, which often do produce a kind of like a commercial value, are often provided a foci for that enable that intangible heritage as well. For example, I said oral histories or folklore that grow up around sites, around physical assets. And this relationship can often be very, very complex, and it's not always obvious. So it doesn't come into these discussions that people are having about cultural capital and about the value, the commercial value of heritage. But a culture and heritage capital approach can help to analyse what is at stake and translate this into relevant information for decision making. So they can both have both financial and advocacy implications, particularly if you're dealing with local communities that feel very, very strongly about a place where they live or an asset that they engage with. So we'll give some examples now. National communities. Stonehenge. There you go. Solstice celebrations at Stonehenge. Huge thing, huge draw. Loads of people go to Stonehenge, not just because of their interest in the archaeology of it, but because of these spiritual and mythic properties of the site that they see. It doesn't matter whether these myth or this spiritual thing is true, it's historically accurate, that does not matter. It's the fact that people, thousands and thousands of people travel here every single year to engage with that aspect of it. Tintagel, famous for its King Arthur connections. Another one. People visit there. And also Tintagel, the heritage managers of Tintagel capitalised on that by having sort of like information about the King Arthur myth because of the association with Tintagel. Glastonbury tour, huge draw for people who are interested in the pagan heritage of the site, whether or not that is true or not, and lots of other versions. In a commercial sector, oral history projects, really good project that Iceni did, working with London and Middlesex Archaeological Society to collate the history of a building located in Camden, which is the Royal Middlesex Hospital. It was being redeveloped as part of a commercial development, but they also got a grant funding to do an oral history project to gather local memories of people who had either worked there or had been patients there. So it gave this kind of added level of contextualization to the heritage that was being found there. And this one was a local project looking at, I can't remember where it was, Wanstead Flats in Epping Forest, where local memories were collected of World War II features from people, from surviving people there. You know, no one knew where these World War II features were, but they were then confirmed and verified through archaeological excavations. So again, it was the oral histories were then informing where the community archaeology was done and were finding the location of these World War II features. And this is a real favourite of mine. This is something that I came across when I was working in West Berkshire. Wash Common in Newbury. It's a Bronze Age barrow cemetery and a scheduled monument. Very, very nice. You can go and wander around it. But it's also, there's a local folk tale that says this is where the dead from the Civil War Battle of Newbury are buried. They're not buried in the Bronze Age barrow cemetery. They're genuinely not. But it's local folklore, and the local primary school go there on the eve of the battle and lay flowers there in memorial of it. So it's important to the culture. So speeding up because Emily's glaring at me. As we're thinking of a way forward, can we get involved with local communities at an early stage of our studies, of our surveys, and build it into project designs? Can we consider oral histories and folklore in desk-based assessments? Can we follow on with further surveys, a bit like Iceni did? And then we can tag that into things like social value, which is becoming more and more of an important aspect of large-scale things. Yeah, it's great. Folklore, intangible heritage, go for it. It's brilliant, yeah.